Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feminist Question Time, brought to you by Women's Declaration International, the leading global organization defending women's sex-based rights against threats posed by gender identity ideology. Many of us have been active feminists in the 1970s or even 60s. We were not surprised when this new attack on women came along, and we have not changed our analysis. In 2018, we wrote a declaration on women's sex-based rights, which lays out our position, and it has been signed by 39,439 people from 160 countries, and it is supported by 547 organizations. To promote the declaration on sex-based rights for women, we have volunteer activists, including country contacts for every continent. Please join us. You can also become a member of WDI to help our work by volunteering or donating. You can write to info@womensdeclaration.com or find out about our activities via your country contact on the website womensdeclaration.com. Our program today is it consists of interventions from 4 different countries. We're going to start with Carola López from Spain. She will tell us about the Sect, a book she just wrote on the techniques of manipulation used by trans activists to advance their agenda. We will have Andreia Noble from Brazil. She will have an update on Brazil. Then we will have Vikki Lax. She will tell us about what happened to the Primark campaign and gender clothes. And we will finish with Noelle from WDI France, Femmes, and she will be doing a France update for us. We are going to start with Carola. Carola López, as I said, she comes from Spain, and she's a practicing psychologist, a feminist, and the president of the Magnolia Institute, an organization for families with children with disabilities. As I said, she's going to tell us about her book, The Sect, Trans Activism, and how they manipulate us. So, welcome, Carola.
Voy a intentar resumir el contenido para que todas podamos entender la deriva sectaria de este movimiento. Vamos a ver ahora. Efectivamente, mi libro se llama La secta, el activismo trans y cómo nos manipulan. Y lo primero que quiero hacer es una aproximación a qué es una secta en general. Son grupos más o menos organizados que seducen y captan a personas. Pueden ser de cualquier edad, sexo y condición, y construyen un relato basado en mentiras. Para que éstas lleguen, utilizan estrategias de manipulación de distintos niveles, que después hablaremos de ellos, y tienen como uno de sus objetivos sustituir la identidad de la persona adepta por una identidad destructiva. Efectivamente, uno de sus objetivos es destruir la personalidad y el cuerpo de sus adeptos e inducen la ruptura de lazos familiares para que este trabajo sea mucho más fácil. A nivel global, trabajan para vulnerar derechos fundamentales, incluso en sociedades que tienen un Estado de Derecho, e imponen una visión del mundo basado en su propio sistema de creencias. Están orientadas las sectas a obtener el control del dinero, poder y sexo. Son 3 ámbitos fundamentales. Y para ello deben imponer sus creencias y protegerse de sus detractores. Y vamos a ver cómo operan. Para captar, utilizan la seducción a través de redes sociales. Ahora mismo lo hacen de forma muy amplia. En España sabemos que hay unas 400 sectas y unos 2 millones de personas adeptas a cualquiera de ellas. Utilizan el movimiento asociativo. Muchas de ellas utilizan la excusa de los derechos humanos y se propagan a través de charlas en escuelas, institutos y universidades. También hacen la captación a través de otros creyentes. ¿Cómo lo hacen? Bueno, pues el conocido lavado de cerebro, que no es más que la aplicación de técnicas de persuasión coercitivas. Es importante el término coerción, que ahora lo vamos a ver. Y para ello utilizan la ruta periférica en el procesamiento de la información. Lo voy a explicar muy brevemente. Para que nos llegue la información del mundo que nos rodea, nuestro cerebro opera en dos niveles. Por un lado, la ruta central, que sería la que tenemos que leer el mensaje y hacer una evaluación crítica del mismo. Y la ruta periférica, que es un atajo cognitivo, es adaptativo, de hecho, a través de esta ruta periférica, pues digamos que nos llega la información mucho más rápidamente. Se utiliza mucho, por ejemplo, en publicidad, o bien cuando tenemos que pedir una ayuda y persuadir a alguien para que nos ayude. Hacemos mención pues a la misma situación, por ejemplo, el compromiso y la coherencia, como algunos de los ejemplos. Por tanto, la secta va a utilizar esta ruta periférica en el proceso de la información. Por eso es tan difícil convencer a una persona que ya ha adquirido estas creencias. Y para ello van a hacer uso de diferentes técnicas de persuasión coercitiva de distinto tipo. A nivel cognitivo, la estrategia más utilizada es la mentira y la denigración del pensamiento, es decir, van a intentar desacreditar que la gente piense. De hecho, aquí en España tenemos a un filósofo que hacía una publicidad diciendo que se pensara menos. A nivel emocional, la persona va a ser captada con mucho amor. Le van a, digamos, a dorar la píldora y le van a dar aquello de lo cual tiene una carencia. A la vez, le van a activar miedo y ansiedad si cuestiona estas ideas o dogmas de la secta, ya sea cual sea. También técnicas de persuasión coercitiva ambientales. Una de ellas es el control de la información, que se puede hacer o bien censurando directamente o criminalizando esa información. Y una de las estrategias ambientales por excelencia es el aislamiento de la familia, de los amigos, incluso de otras personas que pueden tener autoridad sobre el adepto. Y por último, se inducen estados disociativos a través del uso de fármacos, la dependencia de estos fármacos y también sugestionando y creando un sentido de la irrealidad. Digamos que así, esto es una brevísima aproximación de cómo operan las sectas en general. Tenemos ejemplos que se pueden ver en otro tipo de creencias, pero nos vamos a centrar en cómo, digamos, esto lo lleva a cabo la secta trans. Y una de las, digamos, creencias irracionales más corrientes, ¿no? La que está más en la sociedad es la existencia de la identidad de género. Aunque seguramente todas las que estamos aquí sabemos lo que es, pero quiero hacer un pequeño apunte sobre cómo lo define la Asociación Americana de Psicología como un sentimiento profundo e inherente de ser mujer, niña, hombre o niño o un género intermedio. Claro, precisamente la ruta periférica, cuando leemos esto, nos llena como sentimientos de libertad, ¿no? De que cada uno puede ser lo que quiera. Sin embargo, cuando analizamos a través de la ruta central, podemos hacernos preguntas, ¿no? Como cómo se describen esos sentimientos y si existen sentimientos exclusivos de hombres y de mujeres. Y es aquí cuando ya digamos, este término de identidad de género, pues hace agua, ya no tiene ninguna consistencia. Desde el movimiento transgénero, pues hay dos argumentos principales sobre la existencia de este término, una que es basada en una revelación espiritual y otra basada en estereotipos. Y hay una tercera que también hay quien defiende que se encuentra alojada en alguna parte del cerebro. Pero bueno, eso es neurosexismo. En España tenemos una asociación que hace material educativo para menores y este es un buen ejemplo porque recoge cómo una niña que está en la clase de una profesora no cumple con los estereotipos sexistas, como por ejemplo rechazar el rosa, no le gusta la falda, no quiere jugar a la comba, sino quiere meter goles, se cuela en la fila, no atiende digamos, al orden, y entonces la profesora llama a la familia para decir que realmente esta niña es un niño. Para mí es un ejemplo de cómo se tergiversa y algo que es evidente que es sexista, pues de repente ahora tenemos una identidad basada en estos estereotipos y parece que a la gente le cuesta trabajo activar su ruta central para hacer un análisis crítico de este cuento. Lo podéis ver en Crisalis y se llama el cuento En la piel de Daniel. Una de las estrategias que hemos mencionado más frecuentes es la mentira. La vamos a ir viendo una por una, pero os la resumo. Una es la creencia de que se puede nacer en un cuerpo equivocado, que se puede parar la pubertad y que se hacen esfuerzos para adaptar el cuerpo a esa identidad, que los bloqueadores son inocuos, que si no afirman la identidad de género se van a suicidar, que la identidad de género es algo natural y que está demostrado científicamente, que si te hormonas serás feliz, que si te amputas y hormonas cambiarás tu sexo, que una buena familia apoya al niño o niña transgénero si no son transfobos, o bien que encuentre su propia familia. La sentencia de nacer en el cuerpo equivocado es una creencia irracional, es una dicotomía de alma y cuerpo que pertenece a la esfera religiosa y espiritual, que no está aceptada en ningún caso científicamente, que ninguna entidad anide nuestro cuerpo. Y este movimiento hace esfuerzos para adaptar el cuerpo a la idea de lo que es ser hombre o ser mujer dentro de su dogma. Una de las mentiras es parar la pubertad. Esto está incluso en guías sanitarias aquí en España, donde se dice que cuando al niño le crecen los pelitos, hay que darle bloqueadores para parar esa pubertad. Pero lo que no nos explican y lo que esconden es que esas intervenciones farmacoquirúrgicas son irreversibles y provocan daños bueno, pues que son muy significativos en el desarrollo normal del cerebro, del cuerpo y por supuesto pues causa esterilización, por ejemplo. Aquí tenemos una tabla de Alianza contra el Borrado de las Mujeres que recogió en un documento que me parece muy ilustrativo de los efectos de los castradores químicos en menores y desde luego pues son muy variados, amplios y desde luego son muy preocupantes. Y esto a las familias se les esconde deliberadamente. La disociación, que normalmente hablamos de transición, pero realmente es un proceso de disociación, porque a los chicos y a las chicas se les dice que si se hormonan y se amputan van a ser felices, y esto es una mentira porque están persiguiendo un ideal imposible. Y al final lo que se hace es destruir el cuerpo de, en este caso estamos viendo las fotografías de chicas, se destruye el cuerpo de las personas y también la psique. Existe una mentira que es que si no les apoyas se suicidarán, y la evidencia científica precisamente dice que los procesos farmacoquirúrgicos no reducen las tasas de suicidio, sino que incluso aumentan estas tasas en la población de personas transgénero. Al final del documento, que si Widi quiere facilitaroslo, yo estoy encantada de que lo haga, he hecho una recopilación de esta evidencia científica para que podáis, la que quiera, pues leerla y acceder a ella. Porque no es fácil encontrarla, o hay que estar muy pendiente de las fuentes que lo han publicando. En España, la ley del 1 de marzo de 2023 obliga a las familias a creer en la identidad de género de los chicos y las chicas que así se manifiestan. Porque si no se cree, si la familia no le acompaña, deberá tenerse en cuenta a efectos de valorar una situación de riesgo, y se menciona un artículo de una ley orgánica que regula la intervención de los servicios sociales en caso de maltrato. Fijaros, como os he dicho al principio, este movimiento lo que le dice a las familias es que tienen que apoyar sí o sí la identidad de género, y si no, pues serán castigadas con la retirada de la tutela de su hijo o su hija. Y aquí viene pues una prueba de cómo se afanan por romper los lazos familiares. Aquí hay un ejemplo de un Twitter, de una cuenta de Twitter del gobierno de Canarias, que es una comunidad autónoma de España, donde hacen alusión a que una chica que se siente chico, que se está poniendo un binder, si su familia pues la rechaza, creo que es en Navidad, efectivamente, pues que se vaya donde sí la reciben. Y el vídeo se ve como que está con unos señores que fingen ser mujeres en el anuncio. Bueno, el anuncio es un despropósito. Y por supuesto la página web de Euforia, que es una conocida asociación trans de aquí de España, aunque en todos los países hay una filial parecida, habla precisamente de que esta asociación se ofrece como familia. Es decir, donde si tu familia no te apoya, pues acude a nosotros, que en algunos casos incluso llegan a tener pisos para los chicos y las chicas. Una de las cosas que también hacen las sectas en general y la secta trans en particular es la inducción de fobias, de miedos. Y aquí os recopilo algunos de ellos. Por ejemplo, que si no afirma se van a suicidar, eso asusta a las familias y hacen que traguen incluso con sus dudas para no poner en peligro a su hijo o a su hija. Y esto es algo natural, juegan con un miedo de las madres y de los padres. Sabemos incluso que desde hace muchos años que si a los menores no se les afirma, desisten. Y ahora hay hechos que ratifican esta información, pero se le oculta. Incluso estudios longitudinales afirman que la población que se ha sometido a intervenciones farmacoquirúrgicas aumentan los suicidios. Y también algo que hacen es sacar de quicio al adepto, es decir, le inducen ideas como que si te llaman por el nombre anterior es una gran ofensa. Hay menores que incluso pueden agredir a su familia, pueden incluso destrozar sus pertenencias. Y esto es una inducción a la desestabilización emocional, porque le están dando una importancia enorme a una cosa que tampoco tiene tanta trascendencia. porque utilizar el nombre que tenías antes y en vez del que has elegido no debería tener tanta importancia, pero esta secta amplifica esas emociones y la utiliza en contra de la familia. Y aquí es un ejemplo de una asociación que se llama Noues, para que lo veáis, es decir, porque yo lo que pretendo es que a demostrar que esto son pruebas, es decir, no, y lo podéis ver en estas páginas web, pero en cualquier otra, incluso a nivel internacional, seguro que se repiten esas estrategias de manipulación. Aquí tenemos unos ejemplos donde se dice que el malestar psicológico de los menores es porque no hay un reconocimiento ni aceptación de la identidad de género o identidad sexual, como también a veces se llama. Y que esto les va a generar un sentimiento y un malestar tan horrible que puede terminar, por ejemplo, en mutismo, aislamiento, abatimiento, tristeza, rabia, ansiedad. Entonces están despojando a las familias de tratamientos efectivos sobre trastornos pues, que los chicos y las chicas pueden tener, porque están centrando la atención en ese no reconocimiento de una identidad que por supuesto es inventada y sexista. Pero ellos te ofrecen el milagro, ¿no? El antídoto milagroso, que es que una vez que se acepta la identidad, y lo voy a leer despacito porque quiero que veáis el tono en el que se redacta, dice: una vez aceptada su identidad, se observa que quienes se mostraban permanentemente tristes o malhumorados dejan de estarlo. Quienes no se relacionaban empiezan a jugar con sus iguales. Quienes lloraban continuamente empiezan a sonreír. Quienes se encerraban en el silencio empiezan a hablar. Quienes caminaban encorvados y mirando al suelo empiezan a mirar al frente. Quienes se negaban a salir en fotografías ahora sonríen a la cámara. Fijaros el tono, es poético, es milagroso el cambio. Quiero mencionar un estudio de la doctora Lindman que se declaraban trans porque ella, sin darse cuenta, dio en la diana sobre cómo este movimiento es sectario. Quizá conocemos todas que se centra en chicas, que hay contagio social en redes, pero hay un dato que no ha trascendido tanto, y es que casi la mitad quería aislarse de la familia, y esto es una inducción de ruptura de lazos familiares, y una mitad también evitaba informarse en lugares que no fueran transgénero, y esto es una estrategia de manipulación ambiental basada en el control de la información. Por supuesto, está orientado a la infancia y la adolescencia, captando la natural transición a la vida adulta. Y aquí Kaisa X. Ekman nos cuenta que los primeros 5 años implica un gasto de $500.000 y más de $1,500,000 en toda la vida de la persona adicta. Por lo tanto, esto se trata de alimentar un negocio. Bueno, pues hasta aquí he llegado. Este es el resumen, que no lo voy a contar porque prácticamente lo he mencionado ya, y voy a dejar de compartir pantalla para poder veros.
So now we're going to move on from Carola in Spain. We're going to move to Brazil with Andreia Noble. She's going to give us an update on Brazil, and I would like to introduce you to Andreia. She has been some of the times here at Feminist Question Time, but just in case you haven't heard of her, she's a journalist at QG Feminist and 4W, and she's the author of the Grumpy Guide to Radical Feminism. So Andreia, thank you very much for being here with us today, and over to you.
In April 2025, following the repercussions of important developments, like the release of the CAS report on best practice regarding puberty blockers and the UK Supreme Court ruling on the legal definition of a woman being based on biological sex, the Brazilian Medical Council announced that it was raising the age for hormones treatments from the age of 16 to 18 years old. They raised the age in which the individuals can seek for body modification surgeries from the age of 18 to the age of 21. And it also banned the prescription of puberty blockers for children and adolescents with gender dysphoria. However, just a few weeks later, at the end of May 2025, the UN decided to release a report recommending Brazil to legally recognize the existence of trans children and adopt measures to ensure respect for their gender identity. The report was published, this recommendation was published in the report produced by the Committee on the Rights of the Child. This was the result of lobbying by the founder of an organization called My Trans Child, a Brazilian organization, in April 2024, who sent reports to the CEDAW session last year and asked the UN to demand that the Brazilian government established public policies that guaranteed the safety of this portion of the population. Here are some of the highlights of this report. So in the topic, general principles, the committee is deeply concerned about the profound and adverse impact of deep-rooted and pervasive intersecting forms of discrimination against Afro-Brazilian quilombolas. Quilombolas are people in Brazil who live in the quilombos. The quilombos are the original places where enslaved Black people went to if they somehow got freed from slavery, even by escaping or after slavery was abolished in Brazil. So Afro-Brazilians, quilombolas, indigenous and Roma children, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex children, girls, children with disabilities, migrant children, and children living in rural, remote, and urban peripheral areas, including reports of hate crimes. So they included here transgender, intersex children, in an adverse impact of deep-rooted and pervasive intersect forms of discrimination, and also saying lesbian, gay, bisexual children. So in the topic called Right to Identity, the committee recommends that the state party, Brazil, recognize the right to identity of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex children, and put in place measures to ensure that they all enjoy the freedom of expression and respect for their physical and psychological integrity, gender identity, and emerging autonomy. Adopt legislation that recognizes the existence of the transgender children and their rights. Another topic in the report goes like this: violence against children. Ensure that children who experienced bullying, discrimination, or harassment and any other forms of violence, including transgender children, Afro-Brazilian, indigenous, and quilombola children, receive protection and support. Mental health. The committee recommends that the state party adopt specific measures for the children most at risk to commit suicide and mutilate themselves, particularly transgender and indigenous children. Ensure specific health care and programs for transgender children and adolescents tailored to individual needs and ensure appropriate psychological support. Trafficking. The committee reiterates its previous concluding observations, and it recommends that the state party adopt culturally and gender-sensitive measures for the protection of children and adolescents, particularly Afro-Brazilians, Quilombola, and indigenous children, migrant and transgender children. In other bad news, the Federal Public Ministry, Brazilian justice system, is taking legal action against an influencer who described himself as a Christian therapist for publishing discriminatory content on social media, attacking trans children and adolescents. The accusations against the influencer include posting in 2023 an image of a family taking part in a pride parade with the group organized by the NGO Trans Child, and for a video named "Do Trans Children Exist?", claiming that the video has a denialist tone about transgenderism in childhood. The Federal Public Ministry claims that the posts encouraged hate speech and were widely replicated by politicians and influencers with transphobic messages. The prosecutors say that the posts violated the honor and dignity of trans and transvestite people, fostering prejudice against a historically vulnerable group. So the legal action was brought forward by an LGBTI National Alliance organization who claim that they took this measure after attempts to recommend a public retraction and the publication of educational content by the influencer, who allegedly refused to take responsibility and did not adopt the proposed recommendations. According to the Federal Public Ministry, freedom of expression, this is all over Brazilian media outlets. So according to the Federal Public Ministry, freedom of expression, although fundamental, is not absolute. Discriminatory speech is not part of the essential core of this right and cannot be tolerated under the pretext of opinion or belief, the action claims. The Supreme Federal Court has already ruled that demonstrations that incite discrimination or violence against LGBTQIAPN+ people are not protected by freedom of expression. So here's what Brazil has been dealing with lately. It begs belief that anyone can actually think that puberty is a disease to be medically treated if a child says that they are not of the sex they were born, due to adults around them acting up on sexual fetishes of sissy porn. Meanwhile, several women and men are still being sued in Brazil, myself included, for questioning gender identity ideology and the harms they cause to children and adults of both sexes, and to women and girls' sex-based rights. But at least we have, since 2023, the association called Matria, who has been working tirelessly to ensure that the Brazilian government understands the risks of allowing men in women-only spaces such as prisons, hospital wards, toilets, changing rooms, shelters, sports, and opportunities created for women and girls. So if you can, support Matria in any way you can by following them on social media, giving them some visibility. The work is remarkably similar to the work of groups such as Sex Matters and For Women Scotland, and your solidarity would be much appreciated, as together we will be all stronger to demolish this harmful ideology that threatens democratic processes worldwide. I just would like to say that, as I said during the panel, I am being sued in Brazil as well for reporting on a man who was trying to do a Yaniv in Brazil to have his genitals waxed. So I reported on him, and he sued me in Salon and Medium. I lost my Medium account for that. So at the moment, just a quick update. My lawyer says that they had been given some time to respond, and if they don't respond in due time, the chances are that the lawsuit is going to be dismissed and I'm going to be free as a bird, hopefully. About, there was not questions, but some people were like, I'm a old grumpy lady, so the Grumpy Guide to Radical Feminism is might be a handbook for me. Since we have people from all over the world here, just let you know that the Grumpy Guide to Radical Feminism is a way for supporting me with this lawsuit, for instance, is in 8 languages. So that's it from me.
We are going to hear from Vikki Lax. She's from the UK, and Vikki has volunteered and worked in the violence against women and girls sector, and she has campaigned for women's rights. She's interested in how current socio-economic and political environments impact women, and she's going to tell us what happened to the Primark campaign and gender clothes. So thank you very much, Vikki. I'm delighted to meet you again. We met in the UK a couple of years ago, I think, in one of the conferences. So I'm very glad to see you again. So thank you very much, and over to you.
For those I haven't met before, I guess some of my observations and reflections are more about, I guess, what I'm seeing, or I think many of us are seeing in the UK after the Supreme Court judgment, that I'll touch on, if that's okay. But just in terms of Primark, I mean, Primark is where I am, and a number of other women in collaboration, and also before me, spent a lot of time working on a few years ago, that really came out of, I think it was a TikTok video that went viral of a young woman who had experienced, I think, sexual harassment in a Primark mixed sex changing room, which they were at that time. And, you know, it was about trying to raise awareness publicly, but also to engage with Primark and their stakeholders and owners around what was actually going on in their changing rooms. These are more reflections, because I'll be honest, this isn't an active campaign at the moment. One of the really challenging things that came out of some of the supposed changes that Primark made, I think back in 2022, in the aftermath of the TikTok video, was they said that they were instigating women-only spaces. And there was then, and continues to be, a lot of really enthusiastic public support for their women-only changing rooms. But we need to be really clear that their definition of women at that time, and as far as I'm aware still does, is based on self-ID. Okay, so I still see a lot of people saying, bravo Primark, good on you, single sex spaces. I stand to be corrected, but I've had a look on their website this week, and there is no change to that definition that's been there from 2022. So, you know, I guess I'm also then looking at, you know, what's the impact of the Supreme Court judgment, and certainly my understanding, reading guidance from Irwin Mitchell, which I have in front of me, is that for customers, retailers are not legally required, or it's not compulsory for services to be single sex. But where they could start running into problems are if women go into a space that's called women, and there are men in that space, however those men identify. So I'm not, as I said, I'm not actively doing anything in this space at the moment, but I suppose it's piqued my interest as to what might happen. It feels like, and I think this is the same for John Lewis, Marks and Spencer's, pretty much every high street retailer you can pick your clothes up from in the UK, is that it may well be that we need to resort to lawfare yet again for women to have the spaces that we want. I guess the reflection that I wanted to share, and this really comes back to the conversations I had in private, and they will remain mainly in private, with Primark back in the day. I met a couple of members of their very senior team at my local Primark and explained my concerns, talked about, you know, what I felt was something that was possible, particularly for, you know, for all women, but particularly for groups of women who might have particular religious needs or who might have been subjected to male sexual violence. And during that time, and I've actually got my email to them in front of me, they really politely reminded me that they do have a 28-day refund policy. So the read across then at that time to women who were self-excluding from their changing rooms was, buy it, take it home, and if it doesn't fit, bring it back. Bravo them, hey, for inclusivity. And I guess what I'm really interested in at the moment is what the response has been in England in many spaces to the confirmation of what woman is and what spaces should be. And, you know, if it's okay for me as a woman who wants a single sex space for various reasons, to take clothes home and try them on, I'm really unclear why that's not okay for men. Because what it feels like, I think, is how fragile women's rights and women's ability to participate fully in public life is in this country. So I am thinking about what I'm doing. I think the other thing I've seen, and I was watching this earlier in the week, was the Newsnight interview. I'm sure many of you watched it with Rosie Duffield in the aftermath of the judgment. Now, I know it was a wide-reaching interview, but one of the things that really struck me, one of the questions that was asked of Rosie was, did she feel responsible for what did she feel responsible? And it's really interesting, I think, how women in the you know, following on from the Supreme Court judgment, are being made responsible for how men might feel not being allowed into spaces that are designated and intended for women. And the read across for me is, and I appreciate language is contentious, are the gender double standards that I see in the Vogue sector, where women are made responsible for men's violence and men's sexual violence. And maybe it's naive of me, but I kind of felt it felt like quite a sucker punch, actually, that for years and years in all of these institutions and retailers, they've been quite happy to say to women, some of whom would be survivors of sexual violence, just take it home, dear. Off you go. We've got a fabulous refund policy. But the moment the law actually tells us what the law is, suddenly we're responsibilized and we are, you know, being made again to feel that, you know, the needs of men, whatever those needs might be, are just so much greater. And I think I'm going to watch, you know, personally watch with quite a lot of interest as to what goes on. If I get any updates, I'll let Joe know. Joe also asked me just to touch a little bit on gendered clothing. This isn't, I'll be honest, it's not an area I know a great deal about, so I'm always a little bit careful about talking from an even weaker position of knowledge. But I did do a little bit of digging on this, and I wanted again to say that this isn't just about Primark. I mean, some of you might remember a few years ago, John Lewis had to withdraw a dress that someone in their wisdom had named Lolita. I mean, a child, you know, a dress for I think a prepubescent girl being named Lolita is horrifying. I was actually working at John Lewis at that time. Kate Long has done a lot of really interesting work around Primark and other retail as well. But I guess for me, another theme that feels eternal is all of these retailers who talk about inclusivity, who talk about breaking down gender, who talk about how complex gender is as a precursor to allowing men who identify as women into their spaces. But isn't it funny, when they know who they want to socialize to be kind, who they want to adultify, who they want to sexualize, it's always women's clothes. You know, in 2010, I know it's a while back, there was quite an outcry when Primark was selling padded bikini tops to 7-year-olds. Their clothes tell girls to be kind and positive, to keep smiling, to dance in the rainbows, to be grateful and optimistic, whilst at the same time they're saying to boys that they're born to win, they're powerful, they're limitless, they can change the game, and adventure awaits. And I think the other question that's really interesting is, if so many people in the space around how they wish to identify want to break down gender stereotypes and gender norms, I think I'm quite curious as to why they're not in this space trying to break down the gender norms and stereotypes that we have around clothing. Because we can see that girls are being socialized and sexualized in a way that is really, really harmful. What are we teaching our girls to be? So it's just, that was just a whistle-stop tour of some observations that I've got, I think, about things that really are yet to kind of come to fruition in terms of what the high street is going to look like for women and girls, in obviously in kind of in light of the Supreme Court judgment. My sense is there might be a little bit more work to do, but it would be great to hear if anyone else has got any observations. So thank you.
And now we're going to move to France. Marie-Noelle Bass, a member of our sister group, WDI France, Nous Femmes, she's going to have an update on France. She's the legal manager of WDI France and Nous Femmes. So thank you very much for all the work you do in our sister country, and over to you.
We'll speak about our association, who's began an association in February 2024 after operating informally. We had actually 21 members at the end of December. We organize a monthly Zoom meeting where all members can participate, and the following day we have a French-speaking webinar co-organized with WDI Quebec. We have an internet conference which takes place via Zoom, where a guest focuses on the program theme of gender-based women's rights. All our webinars are published on our YouTube channel, which has now 325 subscribers, and as well as on the WDE World YouTube channel too, where they are archived under the Francophone playlist. This video counts till 500 views, and on the WDE World channel till 2,000 views. The agenda is drawn up for the monthly meeting based on current events, project progress, feedbacks, special events, or published works. The aim of the May monthly meeting, which was attended by a larger number of people, was to take stock of our strengths, review what has been achieved, and talk about current projects. Our actions are organized around three concerns. First, raising awareness among political decision makers of the issue of trans ideology and its effects through national and local campaigns aimed at deputies and senators. Two, raising awareness among the general public. The podcast, which named is Rebelles du Genre, Gender Rebels, is today the best tool for raising awareness among the general public and is promoted by a woman whose name is Blandine de Verlange, who is an activist sensational. The three is to provide the feminist movement with a deeper understanding of trans ideology and its impact on women's rights. We have a presence on social networks, Facebook, Instagram, and ex-Twitter. The podcast Gender Rebels give a voice to women who explain why and how they became gender critics and talk about their journey. To date, we had 105 testimonials collected. It's active also on social networks, Facebook, Instagram, and X. The post I don't list the way to have the podcast, but I can give all of the links. We have also a political action and support for partners initiatives. Meeting with female senators during discussion of the law on conversion therapy, which led to a report and bill to ban sexual transition on children. We did also an open letter to the political left wing, to all the candidates, because we have election next year. And we took part in the Congress in last June, the Congress of the Little Mermaid Observatory. Some of us were also present for the 1st of November because one of our organization, the International Front Feminist, make a demonstration with banners in front of the German embassy in support of German activists who fought against the trans law promulgated the same day. Since its inception in July 2021, 41 webinars have been organized at a rate of 1 per month. We have you have the list with the link, and also we have some books published in France about our subject. As Carola write her books, we have 3 or 4 books about transition, which are very interesting.